Live now. There we go. We're live. Hi everyone. Very happy to welcome Brian Price. Do you want to start us off, Brian, by telling us a bit about yourself and your books?
Yeah, I'm an author of two strands, if you like. The first crime book I had was Crime Writing: How to Write the Science, which is a guide for authors on how to avoid mistakes in scientific things like knocking people out and firearms, explosions and DNA and so on. But the subject of tonight, if you like, is my series of crime novels featuring D.C. Mel Cotton in the imaginary town of Mexton. And the latest one, Fatal Shot, which I have here, is published today.
I always wonder when people make things in an imaginary town, if it has a bit of an impact on you when you're like selling the books, because you can't really go to anywhere and be like, I'm the local author of.
It can do. I know some people make a point of setting books in their own areas, which means that it's an easy into the local literary festivals and so on. And small bookshops will stock them, even some of the larger ones. But the advantage of having an imaginary town is that you can put whatever you like in it. So, we need a canal to dump a body in. Yeah, we've got a canal. Or let's have a building someone can jump off. Or let's have an industrial estate that's run down. We can do that. So you can create your own geography and put in anything you want. And if you use an existing town, the chances are you can get something wrong, even if you live there, because you'll get somebody ringing in, say, or writing, emailing, saying, well, that car chase wouldn't work because that's a one-way street or something. So there are limitations. But having said that, in the latest book, there is a rivalry between a drug gang in Mexton, my homemade town, and in Bristol, which is a town I've lived and worked in. And there are some genuine geographical references, and maybe that'll appeal to a Bristol clientele, as it were. And I live in Weston-super-Mare, and I did have the ending of one of my novels, Fatal Dose, in some disused toilets at an old pier in Weston-super-Mare. So there is a kind of local link there.
Do you have to keep, so I know you're saying you can add or have things in your town that you've made up, but
Yeah.
do you have to keep like a map of the town? Because you're on book 6 now.
Yeah.
So you must have to keep track of what you said is already there, so that if no one's going to go, oh, well, in book 1 there was a canal here, and then in book 4 you're not mentioning it and they've just walked over it and it's a road. Or
I don't have a map. I know that Stuart McBride, with his Oldcastle series, has a map in the end papers of his book of Oldcastle and the main features there. But I don't think I need to at the moment. Also, I'm lousy at drawing things. So if I tried to do that and put it in the back of the book, people would wonder what on earth they were looking at.
I didn't mean you have to have it in the book. I was just thinking if you kept one for yourself to be like...
Oh, no. Again, I haven't drawn anything, but I know what sort of features are there. And there's a river. Many towns are built on a river, certainly the older ones. So I've got the features there. Obviously, I need to make sure that I don't sort of switch a town, a subsidiary town or a village that I say is in the north, and suddenly find I put it in the south. That would be, a bit silly, but that's something I can always check before I include it.
You're doubly sorted in the town, the city I live in. There's both a canal and a river to dump your bodies.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So all the things sorted. Malcolm Hollingdrake says, "Good luck with the new publication, Brian."
Thank you, Malcolm.
He also says, "Good evening."
Good evening.
So out today, isn't it? Fatal Shot.
Yeah, that's right.
Publication day. Have you been watching the reviews rolling in?
I've had some very nice things said about them. Yeah, the publishers Hoback organise a blog tour where they get bloggers in just a couple a day, and the ones that have come through have been very positive so far. They seem to like Mel Cotton. They seem to like the pace and the events and the plots of the book. So yes, I'm very pleased with what people have said so far. And I've had a couple of nice quotes, one from Tom Reed, which is on the front cover, and from Anthony Johnson, who said, among other things, that Brian Price is at the top of his game, which is extremely flattering, not to crow about it. So yeah, people seem to like it, which is very rewarding for an author, obviously.
Oh, you go, because you've got, like we said, we're on book 6. All of them start with the word fatal. How are you going to find it challenging as you carry on through the series, coming up with?
Well, Peter James has got through 20 odd using the word dead, hasn't he? So, and Helen Fields had quite a few, beginning with perfect. No, I've got a possible title for the next one. I think you just try and find something appropriate to the subject matter of the book, rather than thinking up a title and then writing the book around it. I think it's a question of doing it the other way. If I was to write a standalone or something, then obviously I would use a different schema for the titles. But for the moment, the fatal thing seems to be going along okay.
We were saying, I mean, I know I don't imagine that you start with the title and then go from there, but what is the inspiration for each book? Do you sort of have an idea for the crime?
Well, I mean, the first book was, I've told this story before. I went in for a competition for the best first opening lines of a novel, and came up with the small grey-haired woman grimaced as she entered the police station, pulling a shopping trolley containing her husband's head. And I then had to work out why the head was put on her doorstep and so on. So it ended up dealing with trafficking gangs and drug gangs, particularly drugs in Mexton, and the villains behind that wanting something which they thought she had. So there was a trade, the trade in drugs, and other references in the book to previous events on trafficking young women. So there was a trade there. And then I did come up with another, and I want to avoid giving a spoiler here, another form of trade which was introduced later on in the book, which just fitted very neatly in it. So that was that. Fatal Hate, the second one, that was basically looking at, among other things, sort of racists and paedophiles. So there's plenty of hatred in the racists and so on. Then we had Fatal Dose, serial poisoners, so that was quite an easy one to go for. And Fatal Blow was a strike against the police station. They bombed that. Fatal Image referred to, among other things, a possible Polaroid of some salacious goings on, shall we say, involving an MP who had to try and get rid of any evidence, mainly the witnesses, and then there's the possibility of an image lurking in the background. And Fatal Shot is self-evident because it involves, among other things, a plastic firearm and illegally converted firearms.
A plastic firearm, like a 3D printed one?
That's right, yeah, and these are a problem. And I had, it's quite early in the book, so it's not a spoiler. Somebody wants to get rid of somebody, a revenge attack. So he prints off this plastic gun, and there he is aiming at this potential target. But it blows up in his face because he's done something wrong. He's put the wrong ammunition in, or he's got cheap plastic or something of that sort. So he ends up in A&E, and suspicions are aroused because one of the nurses looking after him is the wife of an authorized firearms officer. And she says, well, you know, he smelled just like you smell when you come back from the range, which gets them thinking that maybe there's a plastic gun in circulation or somebody has used one. So we've got that thread going along as part of the book. The other point, of course, that chap getting his face blown up, is that he was supposed to deliver a stolen laptop to a Bristol gang, which, as I mentioned earlier, which has all the details of a Mexton's drug lord's activities. But he can't do that. So you've got the owner of the laptop desperately trying to find it. We've got the gang it was supposed to deliver to desperately trying to find it. And in the course of that, there's all sorts of mayhem transpires. People get attacked, even a police officer. And all that is very much in the boiling pot. And in the background, you've got this character who's converting starting pistols to fire live ammunition, which again is a very serious problem in this country. And the police obviously have to try and put a stop to his activities. And coupled with that, just to add a bit more, because the police never had just one case going at a time, Jenny Pike, a journalist who previously had antagonized the police, was murdered at the end of the previous book, Fatal Image, and someone is suspicious about the manner of death not being an accident while she was doing something strange and erotic with a laptop. So that leads to a mystery, a conventional type of mystery investigation, where they try and work out how she was killed without any traces being left, and who could possibly have done it, which again leads Mel Cotton into danger. She does have a habit of getting into danger repeatedly in the books, as some people have pointed out.
I do like the fact that you made the kind of 3D printed firearms not super reliable, because they are not known for being.
I think the general rule is don't fire them more than once if you have to. I saw this in one of those real CSI programs, the things done by the Open University and the BBC. And the police had found this plastic firearm in someone's bedroom. And in order to determine what offence he'd committed, they had to find out if you could fire it. So rather than just shove around in it and point it at a target, they had it clamped on a bench, a string tied to the trigger, and the firearms officer doing it, the ballistics expert, retreated to a safe distance and pulled the trigger. Yes, it fired. It was a lethal weapon. So he was then charged with the appropriate offence. But plastics aren't meant to last as long as metal is. And although there's a metal barrel and one or two other bits like springs, you fire it more than once or twice, then you're in danger of the thing disintegrating. And if you make a mess of making it in the first place, then the chances of it blowing up are even higher.
Yes. Donna says, did you make a note of body count by the end? It must have been quite high.
I didn't, I'm afraid. It's probably reasonably high, and there were one or two near misses as well.
You do keep putting Mel through the ringer. Do you think there might be a time when you let her retire or let someone else take the front?
Well, she's not the only one who gets into bother in this one. Yeah, I think one of the things I do have as a bit of a thread is someone tried to take her head off with a sword in one of the previous books, and she still has the occasional flashback. She doesn't like blades. But she's getting over it. She's had counselling, and the PTSD is diminishing. I'm not an expert. I suspect that it never really goes away completely, but she's now more confident at tackling somebody with a knife or a bladed article than she was immediately after the first book, but the book where she was attacked like that. But yeah, she nearly lost her life to that. I suppose, yes, she sees a lot more violent activity than any normal police officer, but I think that's what people like to read. But other people are affected, and Sally Erskine, her partner, if you like, when they go out in pairs, she also has had some PTSD after some assaults in, again, Fatal Image. They all have their own adverse effects. None of them are like a rubber toy which you squeeze and then bounces back into the same shape. They are fallible human beings, and they do suffer. I think I was told by the publisher that my protagonist should suffer more, so there is that going on, that they are human beings.
Donna says, poor woman, talk about 9 lives. She didn't realise that was per book.
Sorry?
Donna says, poor woman, talk about 9 lives. I didn't realise that was per book.
In fact, I talk about her 9 lives in the book because in the first one, her sergeant, oh, she does something a little bit silly. Says something about you've used up some of one of your 9 lives now. So this does recur slightly through the series, that she's like a cat with 9 lives that's used a lot of them up, because there were some near misses, obviously. But I can reassure people I'm not planning to kill her off. I'm not going to have a sort of rise rapidly through the ranks to senior officer. Maybe she'll go for sergeant. She's thinking about taking the sergeant's exams, but to get to the higher ranks of the police, you don't just get promoted because you've solved a case. You have to go through interview boards and demonstrate capability, go on courses, and by the time you get to anything above inspector or detective inspector, the job's all about paperwork. You don't go around kicking down doors or tackling villains. It's all management and budgets, and increasingly the higher up you go, politics, and that doesn't have a great deal of interest to me. I'm more interested in people out there solving crimes and using their wits and whatever else.
There's another nod to accuracy though, in that you're not going to make her too senior and still have her investigating crimes, because some people do that, don't they, in crime fiction? They'll give the policeman a rank that wouldn't have them out.
Yeah, people do, and there is plenty of advice. If you look at Graham Bartlett's web pages and advice columns and so on, you'll see that you move from action to management. And even a detective inspector, I do have a DI interviewing a suspect because this particular suspect specifically asked to speak to her. And she does say, oh, it's not really a DI's job, but he wants to speak to me specifically. So that's how I get around that one, if you like. But you certainly wouldn't have a chief superintendent going around interviewing people. And the whole interview process anyway, they have to go through quite lengthy training to be a really good interview. There was a TV series, Scott and Bailey, and Amelia Bullmore wrote a lot of that. And that had the interview sections in that were really good. And they talked about somebody being a level 2 interviewer or something, because you don't just go into the interview room, bang on the table and say, cough, you scrote. It's all very carefully structured as to how you're going to get the information out. And if you look at things like 24 hours in police custody, you can see how they are teasing out information, which is very different from, the Sweeney or something like that, or Morse for that matter.
I saw Graham Bartlett do an amazing thing at Bradford Lit Fest where he talked about that. He talked about the police and how they do the interviews, and then he staged like a modern police interview, but of like someone from Jekyll and Hyde, about like a crime in that, and it was so well done. He used an actor, like he had an actor being the character, and he was doing the interviewing and things, and it was really well done, and it sort of really showed you, like he talked you through some of the techniques that they used and things. It was great. Malcolm says, when you're planning your books, do you have a set page length in mind from the start?
I think we tend to go for sort of 80 to 85,000 words, which is long enough to tell a decent story, but I don't think I'd be able to write these sort of 120,000 words, which are particularly, I think, common in America. You see these huge tomes coming through. They're very good. But I think I tend to be a bit more concise in my writing. It has been pointed out to me that I don't spend a huge amount of time on characters, although people do seem to like the characters I've created. I don't go into a lot of description about the scenery. Enough so people know what sort of area they're in, but I don't wax lyrical about the falling leaves or anything. Maybe I should. If anyone wants me to do that, I can. But I do tend to keep things a bit action focused and keep things going. One of the reviewers, Pete Fleming, said very kindly about he didn't know where I had the energy to write all this, all the action scenes, let alone the energy Mel Cotton had to get through them. But
I mean, there is a risk, I think, when you're writing sort of things with a lot of action, of keeping it realistic.
Yeah.
So it's not
I
like a James Bond level or like a John Wick kind of level of ridiculous
yeah,
kind of action, if you know what I mean, where you're reading it going, this person wouldn't be alive.
yeah. Well, I think my biology background prevents me from putting anything really stupid. In terms of the mechanic of fight scenes, Zoe Sharp, who writes superb thrillers and has worked somewhat obscurely in that kind of field, I won't say anything more about it, has advised me on a couple of the fight scenes in the latest book, and has done previously, about whether something would work. And I'm grateful to her for that. But there's basic physiology and biology you have to take into account. And one of the bugbears I have with TV programs and some books, and it was I think the last series of Silent Witness had this. Some guy's shot in the shoulder, and 2 days later he's back at work just with his arm in a sling. If you've ever looked at a diagram of all the plumbing and nerves and bones inside the shoulder, you can see that a bullet going through that lot is going to require quite severe surgery, probably several hours of surgery, and weeks, if not months, of physio and rehabilitation before you do anything. So where you have someone in a TV program, shot in one episode, and the next one he's driving a car or climbing a wall or firing a rifle on that shoulder, that's just tommy rot.
It takes rehab and work, doesn't it? My dad doesn't have any collarbones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. There's only so much you can do, and some people would never be able to use that shoulder again, depending on where the bullet hit and the size and velocity of the bullet.
Donna says, do you have a special way of keeping track of what's going on and who's where? Because it's so fast action, it can't be easy.
I do a day-by-day account of what happens when I get towards the book finishing. But there was a howler I spotted, and it actually went out in one of the proof editions, where somebody was, I think she was still in hospital, was still interviewing somebody. So I had to sort of do a quick rewrite on that to make sure that everyone was in the right place at the right time. But yes, I do a day-by-day sort of log of the major events of what happened. And it usually works.
Fair enough. I mean, that's a good way of doing it, I guess. So how much planning would you put into your books? Do you do all that before you do, or do you get going and then do that planning? Or
I get going. I'm more of a pantser than anything else. I rarely know exactly how the ending is going to solve the problem, take place, whatever. I just see how things develop. There may be one or two sort of set pieces I know I'm going to put in at various points. In Fatal Image, there's the sequence where a chemistry teacher's kidnapped by some kids who wanted to make crystal meth because they'd seen Breaking Bad and thought that's what chemistry teachers do.
I mean, it's not what they do.
None I've ever met. And I knew how she was going to escape, but how it would lead up to that, I hadn't worked out. I just ran the scenes as they fell. And similarly with Fatal Blow, I didn't know how the villains who blew up the police station and were doing various other horrible things would meet their fate. And I brought something in. I don't know whether it counts as Deus Ex Machina, but it was something which I'd been sort of trickling through the book at various points. But no, I just have to see, well, this has happened. What would the police do? What would the villains do in consequence? How would this person escape? How would this person capture somebody? And see how they go. And then obviously revise it later on, get my wife to look at it, then it gets edited, and hopefully it turns out all right. But I know some people, they have spreadsheets, they have every scene on a bit of cardboard on the wall or something, but I couldn't do that. I have to see how the momentum takes me.
You are not a million miles out there. As a science teacher, I have been asked numerous times if I can do the whole Walter White Breaking Bad thing.
Well, when they did the book, the series, they did consult an associate professor of chemistry in a university in, I think, Texas, and she gave them a fair bit of information. but they changed around some of the information in the series so that people wouldn't mimic it. I mean, having said that, it's easy enough to find out what you do online because there's plenty of stuff up there about what chemicals to use and how you can do it.
Malcolm says, your book covers are very attractive. Jane Mapp does a wonderful job. What input do you have in the process, and how important do you feel the cover is towards buyers' interest in the book?
I think, well, I suppose with an ebook, it may not be quite the same. I think a cover is important. If it's in a bookshop, people like to look at it and pick it up and leaf through it. I don't know how effective it would be just looking at it on a mobile phone. But Jane does do some superb covers. In discussion with the publisher, I'll come up with an idea. On the first one, Fatal Trade, I knew I wanted a box with sort of blood leaking out the bottom on a doorstep, and we sort of went to and fro deciding on how light things should be and what the doorway should look like. With the latest one, there were themes I wanted in there. One was the stolen laptop, so a good laptop, the firearms, so there's some empty cartridge cases scattered on the keyboard. And there is also a clue, which I will tell you about, as to how Mel solves the case of the dead journalist, also on the cover. So yeah, I mean, I have an idea. On Fatal Hate, I actually made the bomb that's on the cover without, I hasten to add, any explosives, detonators or timing mechanism, but the container with the alarm clock and the wires on the top I made. Jane asked for a photo rather than have me post it in case anybody intercepted it and it caused a bit of an alert. But with the laptop thing, I just sent her the cartridge cases.
That's I'm never sure how much covers influence people. I know they can go a negative way for me. I got a bit bored of the girl walking away
in the red coat in the dark, yeah,
or a different any color of coat, because they did vary the coat after a while. But there was a point where I was like, I don't actually want no.
If the cover's not very original, is the content going to be very original? Yeah, that's a good point. But there are some very nice covers. I mean, Sarah Yar would love it. Who writes about an ecologist who does gets involved in crimes and detecting and so on. And her titles are all to do with collective nouns for animals, like a trace of hairs and so on. And she has an artist who does similar covers but with different animals on, and I think they look very nice and they look very good. And they are certainly different from your average people walking down the road. David Jarvis's sort of geopolitical thrillers have, again, a similar clever artist on the front. Things like, trying to remember what the latest one, or the green feathers is one, but the mongoose and the cobra, that is, I think, attractive covers on there. So I think they help. I think they can be help. And as you say, some things can put you off.
I think they help. They make you look at a book, but I wouldn't buy a book unless I'd read what it was.
Oh yeah, you've got to have a blurb on it, and obviously, if someone says something nice about the book, somebody famous like Peter James or something, you stick it on the cover.
But sometimes books just do the whole of the back cover being like people's quotes as well, and that annoys me because I like to read what the book's about before I buy it.
You can overdo that, can't you?
Going like on a big hunt to find it out, I'm like,
Yeah, I take your point. You get a blurb and the odd quote on my books. So.
Yeah, I think you need to know what the book's about.
Yeah.
Like when you're going to buy it, and that's the thing that would sell it most to me. Unless it is a book by one of my favourite authors, in which case it just needs to have their name on the front.
Yes, well,
and be new. Like, there are authors, I call them my shut up and take my money authors, those ones. It just like has their name and you're going to read it.
Yes, well, Mike Craven for a start, plenty of others, but yeah.
Yeah, Joe Hill, I was telling you about, I went to his book signing. He's one of mine. Anything he writes.
Yeah.
A go-to for me.
Yeah, there are a few like that, and Belinda Bauer is certainly one.
Who else do I really like? Grady Hendrix, Ellie Griffiths is one of mine.
Yeah.
It just needs to be new and have a name on.
Yes.
Work. I mean, you're going to be that for some people.
Oh, that would be nice, wouldn't it?
I'm sure you will be there. I mean, everyone, like, it's always fun when you ask people about who those authors are to people, because everyone will name someone different.
Yes, I've seen some things like that recently on the Facebook page. Tell me a new author, and then you get about sort of 4 or 5 dozen authors recommended by different people. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's good. I like things like we have them in our group occasionally. People will say, like, recommend something in this theme or something like that. And there are sometimes times where you'll look at it and be like, oh, I'll go and check that out.
Yeah.
It does work, doesn't it? It's quite nice.
It's very helpful, especially if you don't have a marketing budget. So yeah, it's really useful.
Well, yeah, because you'll have the people in the group who'll have read you who'll be like, hi, Brian Price, or...
Yeah.
You were saying about your science book.
Oh, yeah.
Tell us about
that. Actually, I'll show you. It's Crime Writing, How to Write the Science. I produced that because I set up a website some years ago with hints on avoiding mistakes, excuse me, which crime writers and certainly film directors make with scientific things like, you can't knock people out with chloroform like they show in the books. It takes 5 minutes and you wake up almost short immediately afterwards. So a pad over the nose and waking up 40 minutes later in a different place, it just isn't going to work. But because that was what they did in the Golden Age mysteries, other people haven't bothered to look out whether that works, including a major international author who I bumped into at Crime Fest, which I'll say no more. Things like suppressors on firearms, they don't make things go a little pop. Cyanide doesn't make you blue or knock you out immediately. All that kind of sort of mistakes people make. And I put up this website, and then my wife said, well, why not turn it into a book? Which I did. And it was published by StudyMates, a small academic publisher, and got some very nice things said about it. But unfortunately, the publisher has now died. That was back in July. I managed to get hold of the remaining copies, but nobody will be able to get them through bookshops anymore because there isn't a publishing company to supply them. So if anybody does want them, I've got them. They'll contact me directly or go on to eBay or Amazon or something. But I obviously at some point hope to republish it, perhaps in a revised edition, but that's sometime in the future, I'm afraid.
We got some more nice comments. Peter Fleming says the covers of Anna Nicholas's Mallorca novels are wonderful, and the central character has a ferret, which is
right.
Brilliant.
Well, Mel and Tom have parrots. I haven't yet put parrots on the cover. I might do.
There's a recommendation, isn't it? Malcolm wants to know if you enjoy book signings and live events.
I really do enjoy meeting readers and fans and that, yes. At least if you're doing the book signing in a pub, if no one turns up, you've got a pint you can have. So, but yeah, I do enjoy them. And, getting on a panel at Crime Fest, which I've done on a couple of occasions, was really great fun. And a good chance to meet other authors as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think the joy of book events is that you can get something from it however you go, can't you? You can get something from it as a reader because you get to meet your favourite authors. But you can get something from it as an author because you're sort of meeting your fans, but you're also meeting other authors, which is...
Absolutely. I was so impressed the first time I went to Crime Fest, which was 2016 possibly. I half expected to see the famous authors up on a pedestal and all just congregating together, but no, they were in the bar, chatting in the coffee room, chatting to everybody else and being very open and friendly. And I thought, this is great, really supportive, which is why I set up that website, really, on avoiding errors.
And I think people, looks like Peter Fleming's asking about the science book. I think it's important to have people like you, Graham, people who are willing to sort of give that advice.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to help
Well,
authors.
Kate is another one, isn't she? She's wonderful for
Yeah,
advice.
yeah. I mean, it's great fun sometimes if someone says, how can I do this with this particular poison or something? It's quite fun finding out, apart from anything else, apart from part of my professional development as a biologist.
Does that is that one of the things that keeps you sort of going back to Mel and being inspired, sort of something new that you can go and find out and put into the book as like an interesting sort of idea? Or
Yeah, I think some of them are sort of science-based. It's obviously the idea of a serial poisoner in Fatal Dose was home territory, as it were. I just had to make sure I got symptoms correct and what have you. I do have an idea for the next book. I think I don't want to give away too much of a spoiler, and obviously it's not been accepted and not been written yet. I haven't even sketched it out much, but I think it'll involve rare earths. You probably know that a lot of modern technology, from electric car batteries to wind turbines, solar panels, a lot of them involve these very rare, like I say, rare earths. They're unusual elements. They're rare because although there's a lot of them about, they're very dilute in the rocks in which they occur, and they're all mixed up with other stuff. And China has a very large control of the market. So anybody who can get hold of these or refine them more easily, could be making quite a few bob. So I have a feeling I shall be involving rare earths in the next book at some point, and an unusual poison.
sounds good. Peter Fleming wants to know who your favourite poisoner is.
My favourite poisoner. If you're talking about an author, I'd say M.W. Craven. If you're talking about somebody in real life, I don't want to heap any adulation on any particular poisoner. I mean, there are all the famous poisoners like Cream and the Borgias and Tofana and what have you. One of the most fascinating, and one which shows how doctors can sometimes make mistakes, is of course Graham Young, who was using antimony and thallium to poison people, and they let him out of Broadmoor and he went straight on and poisoned his workmates with thallium. So that's a fascinating story. But as a favourite, I wouldn't want to sit down for a pint with him.
Well, you never know what you might be drinking.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. People who do stuff with really unusual things as well are fascinating, I think.
Sorry?
I think the people who do stuff with unusual things are fascinating, like the poisons.
Yeah.
Or, not necessarily a poison, but like the people who killed Alexander Litvinenko. That's an interesting.
Yeah, that is horrendous. I think it's the first time a radiological poison, which I don't tend to write about because to get hold of things like that, you have to be basically a state organization. But it's the first time I've come across that in real life, poisoning anybody deliberately. I mean, ignoring obviously nuclear tests and Chernobyl and various other nuclear accidents which have happened, most of which fortunately haven't led to huge fatalities. So yeah, that is unusual, but there are one or two which haven't been used in fiction or real life, I think. And there's a thing called gelsemium or gelsemium, which has been used to kill people. It's actually mentioned in the crime book, the science book, about some Chinese people. Was one of them poisoned another with gelsemium in a cat stew, which apparently is a delicacy over there. Cat lovers look away. But there was a suspicion, it's quite interesting, that there was a Russian financier who was suddenly collapsed mysteriously while out jogging. And they wondered whether it was, again, a sort of KGB-sponsored murder. And initially, a botanist at Kew Gardens identified the likely presence of gelsemium, the plant which it comes from, in this fellow's gut, but then changed her mind. Conspiracy theorists take note.
You have that wonderful short story collection of all different poisons as well, don't you? While we're on that theme.
Yeah, Pocket Full of Poisons, that's right. I'd written a number of short stories over the years involving poisons. Some were published, some were not. Some were just for fun for my writing group. So I thought put them all together, maybe write another couple of new ones and see if people like them. And people do generally.
Yeah,
An ideal Christmas stocking filler, Pocket Full of Poisons. It's the sort of things you can read between eating one mince pie and the other.
And I'm wondering what the mince pie is poisoning you with.
Well, yes. Be careful what you eat.
I would avoid mince pies. Yeah. But yeah, I heartily recommend Pocket Full of Poisons. It was a good read.
Thank you.
Tell us about your plans for your launch event or your launch celebration.
Sorry, yeah, that's in the Black Cat Weston-super-Mare, my local micro pub, which hopefully people will come along to. Obviously not if you're living a long way away, but I do have one chap from coming down from Gloucester to get a copy, so that should be interesting.
Malcolm's got a good question for you.
Right.
He says, as a scientist / chemist, is there a perfect way to commit murder? He won't tell more than 6 people.
People do ask this question a lot. The perfect murder, I guess, is one which nobody knows is murder, which is something that Agatha Christie's touched on. Murder is easy, I think. Most people didn't think that at least some of the deaths in that were actually murder, but they were. So rather than, if you can make someone appear to die from natural causes or in an accident of their own causing, then that, I guess, is the perfect murder. But if you're trying to poison somebody, there is no undetectable poison. If somebody thinks it's there, then they'll find it. It may take months of painstaking chemical analysis, and there'd have to be some suspicion as to what it might be. But ultimately, they'll find it. The one instance where I guess that didn't happen was in the killing of Georgy Markov on Westminster Bridge with this pellet containing ricin. They looked at the symptoms, they looked at the signs, and they discovered that this little pellet must have contained no more than a given quantity, a very small quantity of a poison. The only thing it could have been that was that effective, having those effects in that quantity, was ricin. They didn't actually measure ricin in his body. By then it had pretty much disappeared by the time he was dead. But generally, things will hang around either in their own form or in a metabolized, a converted form. And if you look in the right place and use the right equipment, then you can find it. But that really begs the question: there'd have to be suspicion that something was wrong in the first place, because the police aren't going to spend sort of £10,000 or £15,000 on analysis on pure spec as to what this might have been.
Peter's suggesting Roald Dahl, his story with the frozen leg of lamb, so you can eat the weapon.
Oh, yeah, eating the evidence. Yeah, fine. Whether a pathologist would identify the contusions on the skull, I don't know. But yes, that's a clear one. That was in what was a film called Serial Mom. They did that, where the killer, who was, I can't remember her name, she bashed someone's head in and fed the lamb to a detective who came round for dinner. It was a completely bizarre thing. It was a John Waters film. But yeah, that was used, I think, pirated from Roald Dahl in that case. But again, there would be the fact that someone had their skull caved in. You don't necessarily have to find the weapon to prove it was murder. And somebody would be suspicious and then do the usual things of looking at motive and alibis and what have you.
Donna has a question, but you might want to message her the answer after the chat because she suspects it might be a bit spoilery.
What's that?
Donna's question is on the comments, but you might want to message her it after the chat because she thinks it might be a bit spoilery. So I'm not going to ask you here because we don't.
Okay, I'll look in the messages and see what she wants. Yeah.
Yeah, she does say it may be spoilery in the question. I'm presuming that she's being correct about that. She's normally pretty.
Did you say spoilery?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sure. Okay. I'll get back to her privately. So.
Yeah. We don't want to give anything away to anyone else who might go and discover the book, do we? So this is a good point in the chat where I like to ask you what you've read recently and really enjoyed.
I just read something I picked up in a second-hand shop, Poison in Jest, a John Dixon Carr thriller. I enjoyed it. I mean, the characters are absolutely bonkers. It's a sort of dysfunctional family in 1932 America with a judge and all who's being persecuted, all sorts of stuff, but it's very clever. Most of the poisoning stuff he's got correct. Although at one point he did have somebody about to inject somebody therapeutically with ether, which would be incredibly painful and pretty pointless. But most of the time he's got the poisoning correct, although he spells hyoscine slightly wrong. What else have I read recently? I read Mark Willingham's book, the latest Tom Thorne one, a little while back, and that's devastating. And he was interviewed on UKCBC about that, and I fully concur with the comments which Sam made about it. And yeah, I read that. I tend to tear through books quite. Oh, Stuart McBride's This House of Burning Bones. I read that like last week. He's back with the Logan McRae series. Very funny, very bloody. Typical Stuart McBride. Is definitely back on form. So I did enjoy that. But I've got a huge TBR pile at the moment to work my way through. So yeah. Oh, David Jarvis's Green Feathers. I did read that recently. That's really good.
I've got a very big TBR file as well. It's a problem, isn't it, that all readers have?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. Especially if your son works in a bookshop.
Although I'm currently reading a biography of Zippy.
Oh yeah, what's that?
Right. It's about the man who puppeteered Zippy. Sorry, there you go.
I see. Okay.
My copy is even better because it's signed.
Oh well, yes indeed. Yeah.
Which is very good. It's very entertaining. Heartily recommend it.
Okay.
If you're a fan of anything, like it just is all my childhood shows that
right.
I grew up with, which is very lovely.
Yeah.
Donna's saying the problem is that you read one and gain three.
Yeah, yes. Yes, if you find a new author, you can't wait to devour everything they've written, I think. Yeah, I like Tom Reed, another recent author I've read. Burn It All Down is another excellent addition to the Jack Logan series.
Peace of Fleming says the original Bungle was terrifying. He was, according to the descriptions. I don't think I ever saw the original one. I think that was before I was born.
The original?
The original Bungle from Rainbow was terrifying.
Right. Okay. No, I don't know that one.
No. Well, the description of him in this book sounds terrifying, but I think it was from before I was born, those ones. I think I caught it later when they've got rid of the terrifying parts, if you know what I mean. But yeah, it was a good it's a nice like kids TV show. So it's always good. What are you writing next then? What's the next thing for you, next project?
Well, book 7. I do have a short story coming out. There is Abby Rutherford, a editor, is producing a series of a book with 13 murder stories in it, or crime stories, for an ME charity, and I've got a pastiche of a certain Belgian detective in that, which I wrote for fun. I'm not sure when it's coming out. It should be out fairly soon, so I'll, if it's okay, get it mentioned in the the UKCBC thing, as it's a charity job. But I'm not sure, what the publication details are on that yet.
Well, that sounds good. And have you got an idea for the next Mel book?
Well, the rare earths is going to feature it somewhere, I think. And maybe another plot thing I'm trying to wrestle with, which there's one or two sort of unresolved questions about it, which I want to avoid going into an area I'm not really familiar with or comfortable with, but we'll see. We'll see.
And do you have a plan? I'm sure I've asked you this before, but do you have a plan of how many Mel books there's going to be? Are you going to finish them at certain points?
When I run out of ideas or run out of energy, I'll keep writing them as long as Hobeck keep publishing them. But I don't think I'm going to start writing for the sake of it. I haven't got a good idea, then I won't, won't bother. I'll just wait till I get an idea. And there are various ways of seeing the characters develop, which I can have as part of the book. But yeah, I've got I haven't said I'm going to write 8 books or something. I'll write whatever people are interested in reading, as long as I've got the energy and don't fall under a bus.
Have you got any standalone ideas?
Any what?
Got any ideas for standalones?
Well, one of the characters who crops up in a couple of books is the technician, who's a young woman who fed up with having her mobile phone stolen. And this is based on sort of a sign I saw outside Streatham Hill railway station in London about people having their phones nicked as they were leaning on the crash barrier. She got fed up with having her phone stolen, so she fixes up this little device inside a mobile phone which will make it catch fire if someone nicks it. And someone duly does, but unfortunately sparks hit him in the face and he ends up under a 159 bus, which I used to take regularly when I lived in London. And there she is. She's done this dreadful thing, which she'd never intended to do. I think it was prompted by a writing queue in our writing group with the theme unintended consequences. And she gets sort of very concerned, should she go to the police, would she get away with it, and so on. In the end, she figures she has got away with it, although she's got this on her conscience. Goes off to university to do engineering and decides to put her talents to use, basically a bit like a kind of equalizer, but without so much violence, no Denzel Washington beating people up kind of thing or shooting them to bits. So she uses technology and intellectual rather than physical techniques to get rid of nasty people and right wrongs, not necessarily rarely killing them, but doing things which can impede their lives, like some drunken driver who nearly runs over a dog and won't pay the vet fees and so on. So she puts some abrasive in his posh sports car and it just stops in front of the zebra crossing because the engine's blown up, and a copper comes along and breathalyzes him, and that's the end of his sports car and his driving and so on. That kind of vengeance kind of thing, or social justice you might call it. And she, as I say, she crops up in a couple of the books, and I do wonder whether that would make an interesting standalone thriller. But at the moment, I think Hobeck want me to carry on with the Mel Cotton series and see how that goes.
Well, you sold me on the other one.
You reckon?
Yeah, I agree.
Standalone.
Yeah,
could do. Could bring a bit more humour in it than the Equalizer stuff, maybe. But there we go.
Yeah, that sounds great. And as Donna points out, there's only so much poor Mel's body can take. So you could give her a rest while you wrote it.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, DC Trevor Blake gets injured in the current book, the Fatal Shot. And I do cover the consequences of physical injury to some extent, that people don't always get away scot-free. But yeah, you know, I think people like Mel to mix it a bit with the villains, but maybe sort of keep the injuries down a little bit.
Donna says she'd also read your idea for the standalone.
Right. Okay. Do some crowdsourcing or something.
There you go. See, there's a few of us. We're all on board. We'll message Tobeck and be like, tell Brian to write this.
Yeah.
See, it helps when we know your publisher as well.
Yes. Yes.
So we've got a few minutes left. Remind people what they're going to go and buy if they have not already done so.
It's Fatal Shot, ebook and paperback. You can get it from the Big River. If you can support an independent bookshop, that'd be great. Or you can get it direct from Hobeck via their website, which I think they'd be happy to supply as well. So, yep, out today. And if you're in the Weston-super-Mare area, pop into the Black Cat tomorrow night.
And do you want to show everyone your science book again so that if they order that they can?
There we are. If you want to get it under Amazon, you have to look under books. If you just type the title in, it doesn't seem to come up, but if you then look under books, it does. So there we go.
Okay. So there you go. Some new things for people to go and have a look at. Donna says she's going to have a word with Rebecca.
Right. Well, I'll have to see. But it would be a different sort of book, which I'd have to sort of adjust my writing style to and what have you. But the technology bits would be fun.
I think you're more than capable of adjusting your writing style to things, because we saw that in the Poison short stories, that you could do all different kinds of things.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Oh, thank you.
So I don't think that would be an issue. Donna says, what if she's not in Weston-super-Mare and wants a signed copy? To be fair, geographically, I'm not even sure where Weston-super-Mare is, which is a really bad thing to say.
It's 20 odd miles southwest of Bristol. It was a popular holiday resort for many years, but it's now somewhat seedy because things like that have declined and we've got lots of empty shops and what have you. We do have a Waterstones, which is a bright spot, but a lot of the nicer, older independent shops have shut down, alas. If she wants, I can arrange that for her. I mean, she's got my email address, and I'll send the bank details and get one in the post to her for whatever it'll cost. I don't know.
Lovely. So if we want signed copies and we're not around the area, we can message.
Yeah, get them. I can send them direct, certainly, and the crime book. You know, so I'll send the details in response to an email or a message. So that'd be great.
A signed copy is a lovely gift for Christmas, isn't it? In the run-up.
Yes.
Christmases and birthdays. If you're like me and my family, it's birthday and Christmas season. So
my birthday
are wonderful.
My birthday's in December as well as Christmas. So in January, I have this meter-high pile of books to get through. So yeah.
Me too. I'm a December and birthday.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Donna says she'll be in touch. She needs to keep the collection up to date.
Lovely.
So and then all that's left to say is thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much too. Thanks very much.